Welcome to Podcasts, recorded live at the Center for Spiritual Living in Portland, Oregon. We have many programs, classes, and workshops developed just for our online audience. To find out more, go to our website at csoportland.org and look under the Online tab. Our mission is to open hearts, ignite minds, and make a difference. If you'd like to support our center and its video podcast, you can donate online at csoportland.org/donate. Allow us to become part of your extended spiritual community. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are most welcome at the Center for Spiritual Living.
We believe that the ultimate goal of life is a complete freedom from all discord of every nature, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all. It's one of our principles, declaration of principles here at Centers for Spiritual Living. And when I read that, it makes me think, so I have to work for my freedom? And then I found this from Ernest Holmes. The divine plan is one of freedom. The inherent nature of man is ever seeking to express itself in terms of freedom, because freedom is the birthright of every living soul. I like that one better, because it means we're born free, that we're free now. And it can seem, these two statements, like they conflict. But I have one idea of how we can reconcile them. And that's, we are indeed born free, free in our mind, in our bodies, in our souls. That is our divine birthright of every single human being, no matter when they were born or where they were born. That is God's plan for us. And then the unfortunate part is that sometimes we use our free will in very unhealthy ways. And we make choices that create discord in our lives and in the lives of other people. Sometimes we make horrendously poor choices that create a lot of discord for a lot of people. But we can know that we have that freedom that cannot be destroyed, that is our birthright. And we can have more and more of that, or I should say reveal more and more of that, individually and collectively, to create more possibilities for more people. And because July 4th is coming up, which is supposed to be about freedom, I thought I would look at, in addition to this divine freedom that we're born with, look at some of the promises of freedom we proclaim in this nation, though imperfect some of them still are, but we are making progress. And some of these freedoms help us dissolve some of that discord for ourselves and others. And I want to start with the freedom that we kind of forget because it seems like ancient history to us, but is incredibly important. And that is the fact that in this country, when we established our form of government, by the way, some of you may know and some of you don't know, I was a lawyer in my previous life. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and use examples from my legal career working with immigrants to tell some of these stories today. But one freedom that I think is fundamental that we established in this country 250 years ago was freedom from the idea of a monarchy that had divine right, which is pretty radical at that time. Remember, we broke away from a king that had divine right. There is God, and there is the king who is pretty darn close to God, and the rest of y'all just have to praise those two and live in that way. And it's not very free. But we decided in this country, we're not having any of that monarchy stuff. We're going to give power to the people. It was a very imperfect system, but that's what we said we were going to do, and we did it in word. We didn't always do it in deed. But I think this freedom is absolutely fundamental, because what that did in this country is it opened us up to thinking about, well, if God isn't the king or really, really close to the king, if the divine doesn't only live in the king, what is our relationship with the divine? All humans, what is our relationship with the divine? And this freedom, created an expansiveness in this country that later came to be known as the American Enlightenment, and part of that was the freedom to explore new ways of expressing our spiritual nature. We were free in many ways. This American Enlightenment led to great discoveries and inventions, great expansion in thought and in governance. And in many ways, the people were like, we're free and we could do what we want. It was incredible creativity at that time. And one of them was in spirituality. And it was at that time, 200 and some years ago, that our ancestors in New Thought, which is kind of our umbrella of spirituality, that they realized, oh, so the divine may have been in the king, but it's also in all of us. And that's that unifying principle for all New Thought. Yes, Centers for Spiritual Living and Unity and Divine Science, and yes, Christian Science too. Okay. We're not Christian Science, but we have common ancestors that knew that the divine lived in everybody. And of course, we know that here in Centers for Spiritual Living because we know that spiritual truth is revealed through everybody. We also know that spiritual truth is revealed in all faith traditions, which is the second freedom I want to talk about. That is in our laws and our Constitution, freedom from institutionalized religion. The government's not supposed to establish a religion or impede our freedom to practice our chosen religion. Again, we know what that is in this faith tradition because we preach that golden thread of truth. Another promise of freedom we have in this country is freedom from lack. Now, this is not in the Constitution or in any of our statutes. I've read a lot of them, and none of them say, every person who lives in the United States shall be free of lack. And we know this is not true. It's never been true in this country that every single person in this country has everything they need all the time. We've actually prevented many people from realizing that in their lives, but it is a promise we claim to make to people. And when you work with immigrants for many years, even though we may be cynical about that promise here, believe me, the immigrants and refugees who come here every day still believe in the American dream. It's why they're coming here. I've worked with hundreds, maybe thousands of them, and it's why they come here. They come here because of what Emma Lazarus, a 19th century Jewish American and advocate, wrote that is now on the Statue of Liberty. Sounds a little cliche to talk about the Statue of Liberty close to July 4th, because I'm sure you've all heard that little line about bring me your huddled masses yearning to be free. But I want to read you the whole poem because it gives you a better sense of what we're talking about. The the poem is entitled The New Colossus. And it talks about how we're going to do things differently here. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here at our sea-washed sunset gate shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles, which, by the way, is what people in other parts of the world call her, not the Statue of Liberty. And her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome, her mild eyes command. Keep, ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuge of your teeming shore. Send those, the homeless, tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. So there's the promise. And I think we're realizing more and more of it. And again, a parallel with Centers for Spiritual Living is we absolutely believe that there is more than enough for everybody, everywhere, all the time. In fact, I often would say that to my immigrant clients. Welcome to my country. I know that there's more than enough for you here. The next freedom that we promise in this country is freedom from oppression. We claimed this 250 years ago, and we did not mean it. A lot of people did not mean it. The man who wrote some of those words, Thomas Jefferson, did not mean it. He wrote in the Declaration of Independence, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." For being such an educated man and having a great idea, he did not seem to know the definition of all. And many of his contemporaries did not know the definition of all. This man who enslaved men, women, and children. Now, I do give him credit for writing these words as a promise that we are getting closer to fulfilling, but I need to recognize the hard truth, that it did not mean all at that time. Now, we know the definition of all, right? All means all. Our vision for Center for Spiritual Living is a world that works for all, which means enfranchisement for all people, justice, and true belonging for all people. Yeah. Yeah. And the great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. knew that not only is this the birthright of every person, but he also knew that we were dependent on each other and intertwined. Harking back to Emma Lazarus, who also wrote that until we are all free, we are none of us free. Dr. King wrote these words. In a real sense, all life is interrelated. All men are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality. So we're intertwined in this quest for embodied and lived experience freedom. And I believe all these freedoms we have or promise in this country, together with our divine birthright of freedom, does create great possibilities for us as individuals, for our families, and our communities. I want to start with the individual. When we have these freedoms, we can be who we are as we are because we know that's just the way God intended us to be, and other people recognize that. There's nothing about me that has to be fixed. When we have this kind of freedom as an individual, we can find truth that resonates with us. We can define success for ourselves, what that is most meaningful for us individually, and we can live to our full potential. And to illustrate this point, I share with you the story of Isabel. Isabel was 5 when I met her. She and her older siblings and mother had just immigrated here from Guatemala. And in Guatemala, they lived in absolute poverty. 1 room, wooden shack on the side of a hill with a dirt floor that became a cold, muddy floor in the rainy season. And they were lucky if they could find a piece of plywood or cardboard to sleep on, so they weren't sleeping in the mud. Little Isabel was born deaf. And when you're that poor in the high mountains of Guatemala, there are no resources for you. She had no health care. She couldn't go to school because she didn't know how to hear or speak. She developed a sign language with her family, so she communicated with her family, but not outside her family. So I imagine she was a very lonely little girl. And in Guatemala, she had no future. There was no way she could fulfill who she was put on this planet to be. But somehow, miraculously, her mother found a way here to this country with her 3 children. And through the school system, she was connected to social services, got health care for Isabel. Turned out, Isabel just needed some hearing aids. So with hearing aids and therapy to help her adjust to a world that now includes sound, and speech therapy, and the assistance she needed at school, little Isabel was finally in school. She was learning, she was making friends. And you could imagine her mother's great joy when she heard her little girl say in her voice, "Mama." This little girl is free to learn and grow and thrive and live to her potential because of the freedoms she found in this country. In our family life, when our families have the kind of freedoms we're talking here, first of all, family can look like how we want it to look like, right? Families come in all shapes and sizes and colors and makeups and everything else, but it's still family. And within those families, we're free of rigid roles of what different family members are supposed to do. Men do this, women do this, and by the way, men only look like this and women only look like this and all that mess. Okay? But we're free to act as a family unit and to decide as a family what is best for our family. How can the members of this family contribute in their highest way to the advancement of the family? Which brings me to the story of Santa. Santa's from Honduras, and where Santa was raised in Honduras, the boys are lucky if they can go past 6th grade education. Forget it for the girls. That's just not going to happen. But when I met Santa, she was in high school. And it was immediately obvious, man, this girl's smart. Even with the language barrier, I speak some Spanish, but I'm not fluent. But even with that, I'm like, man, this young woman is extremely intelligent. So one day her brother called. She was living with her brother who was taking care of her and supporting her. He called to make a payment on her legal fees, and we took care of that. And I said, man, she's smart. He goes, yeah. We know, the whole family knows that she is by far the most intelligent member of this family. In fact, we've made a decision as a family. All of us work at regular jobs to support the family. Santa's not allowed to work. Her only job is to go to school. So she can achieve her dream, which is to be a doctor. The last I heard, she was in college, on her way to being a doctor. That would have never happened in Honduras for this young girl. And lastly, we have freedom for our communities. which means we're free as a community to create a community where everybody can be safe and everybody belongs. We're free as a community to know or to act on what Nelson Mandela taught us. For to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. And Maya Angelou, the ache for home lives in all of us, the safe place where we can go as we are and not be questioned. I want to live in that community, right? Which brings me to Wilfredo. And I can hardly say this young man without getting a little teary, despite me telling this story many times. Wilfredo was from a small village in Mexico with terrible gang violence. If he had stayed there, he had two options. He could join the gang and be violent like them, or he could resist the gangs and probably be seriously injured or killed by the gangs that he was resisting. Wilfredo was like, I don't like either one of those options. So he found his way to the United States, found his uncle in Colorado who agreed to take him in. And when I met Wilfredo, he was in high school, and he presents as this real tough, macho young man, with his ironed, creased jeans and his pointy Mexican cowboy boots and his always white cowboy hat. Real macho young man. And the program we were using to help Wilfredo get his legal status is only available until you're 18. And he was getting real close to 18. And we still didn't have what we needed from the courts. So Wilfredo was getting pretty afraid. He's like, man, I'm going to be deported back to that violence that I came from. He was really scared. And I finally got what we needed from the court. I sent it to his immigration attorney. Within 20 minutes, my phone rings. It's Wilfredo, crying. This young macho man, this close to being 18, he's crying. And he says to me, his exact words were, Bridget, this changes everything. I don't have to go back. I can stay here and pursue my dreams. Wilfredo's dream, his great dream, was to be a U.S. Marine. Wilfredo was crying because he knew finally he was safe, that he had a place to call home and where he belonged. So Isabel can learn and live up to her full potential. Santa and her family can fulfill their dream, and Wilfredo is safe and he belongs because of the freedoms we have in this country. So yeah, freedom leads to possibilities for all of us. Let's take a moment to pray together. Take a breath. I'm going to take a breath. Young Wilfredo, I think, will stay in my heart to the day I die and probably in all my days thereafter. I carry that young man with me. And I invite our practitioner prayer partners to stand with me and hold this prayer in their consciousness on behalf of this community and for all peoples everywhere. For I know and declare that love that brought us forth, that was so filled with wanting to express its love, that it had to create. It has to create all the time, everywhere, always, always, always. That power and that love that in this moment is birthed in a galaxy somewhere also is giving life on this planet, breathing itself into existence as all life, as all humans everywhere, no matter where they live, the language they speak, the religion they practice, no matter their life circumstances. The divine has saw fit to breathe its life in, through, and as each and every single one of us. So I know and declare that divine birthright of freedom is more and more fully expressed for our one human family and every single member of it. It is my life's purpose. It is our purpose. It is what we are here for, to bring more and more of that freedom into actual experience, and that web of interconnectedness, of mutuality that Dr. King reminded us of. For we are none of us free until all of us are free. And I want to be fully free. So I declare that full freedom now. And I know this is the truth, and I give thanks that this is the truth, and that we are revealing more and more and more. So with deep gratitude for this divine birthright, and deep gratitude that love and freedom is the very basis of the universe, I simply turn it over to that love, knowing that it is done in the mind and heart of that love. And so it is.
We hope you enjoyed today's podcast. If you happen to be in the Portland, Oregon area, we'd love to have you visit in person. The Portland Center for Spiritual Living is located at 6211 Northeast Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Our inspirational service is at 11 a.m. every Sunday. We also have many programs, classes, and workshops developed just for our online audience. To find out more, go to our website at cslportland.org and look under the Online tab. We have a variety of content dedicated specifically for our podcast listeners. Our mission is to open hearts, ignite minds, and make a difference. If you'd like to support our center and its podcasts, you can donate online at cslportland.org/donate. Our website is also the place to learn more about what's going on at the center or to contact us. Allow us to become part of your extended spiritual community. Wherever you are in your spiritual journey, you are most welcome at the Center for Spiritual Living.